this is my first meet actually. I want to explore Meshery and Layer5 community more. So hey everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Karthike. An community of mine, and basically this name is OpenCo, and I am most on the machine learning side. I'm previous year I'm a GSOC student under TensorFlow org. So I contributed in TensorFlow.js community, and here I'm open source guy. I just want to explore more on Meshery and Layer5 community. So thank you.
It's great to have you here. Okay, so who wants to go next?
Yeah, hi. Hello everyone, I'm Aksharati. So I'm an engineering student from HBTU Kanpur, India. So this is my first time exploring open source, but I have prior experiences with internship, majorly in front end, where I worked with React, Redux, and Material UI. So I'll be looking forward to contribute here.
All of those are used extensively in some of our projects, so you can start contributing pretty soon. Welcome to the community. Okay, who wants to go next? Any other newcomers on the call?
Yeah, hello, hi.
Hello.
Hello, so yeah, can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hello, so I'm Amit. So I'm also a student of engineering from India, Bangalore. And I got to know about the community from Kunal Verma, and I'm also a community member at Data on Kubernetes. So I'm just exploring the cloud native ecosystem here, and have landed here. So looking forward to contribute to community and learn from you all.
Welcome. Okay. Are we missing anyone else?
Hi.
I think.
Are you guys talking about newcomers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm Ruturaj. I'm also from India, and I joined the community last week. I found out about Meshery through just GitHub, like someone's GitHub profile, and I learned that it's a part of CNCFs, and I was interested in exploring cloud native projects. So yeah, that brought me here.
Nice. That person's profile will go unnamed. We'll leave it at that.
I'll try to find out the name for sure.
Oh, okay. I thought you were sparing someone. That's great. Great to have you. Good of you to come.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey there. So my name is Juliano Frantosi. I'm from Brazil. I was just recently introduced to the project. So I'm still a very early stage of exploring here, but I've really enjoyed the community support. So I'm actually quite excited to get to know about everything. I heard it's probably useful for the project that my team is the team I'm on is working on, which is related to Istio. So that's it.
That's awesome. Welcome, Juliano. And the Brazilian time zone from Central Time, where at least for my part, you're only 3 time zones away. The problem with that, though, is it's like 1 o'clock, a little after 1 o'clock for you. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, that's kind of a problem because it's broadly known that for my part, I'm incapable of saying anything other than good morning, like at this hour.
Yeah, no, I get this on a daily basis because actually my boss and a couple of other team members live in the US. So I every day I hear good morning when it's past 12 here. So you abstract that after some time.
Yeah.
Just kindness. So you just take it.
telltale sign of any narcissist. It just
That's very kind of you, Juliano.
I'm not sure who I just harassed, but good. Welcome, Juliano.
So hey, hi guys. I'm Yogi, and I've been part of Layer5, but I've been very on and off. So I just wanted to introduce myself too. My name is Yogi Porla, and I work at HPE. This has been I've heard great things about this community, including team members like Juliana, who is a really good, has great deal of things, great things to say about this community and how helpful the community is. So thank you.
By the way, Yogi was the one that introduced it to me, so.
I'm not, I think it was Kunal had introduced another individual on the call. It's like, you just got to be careful who you associate with. You know what I mean? You just got to. Oh, that's good.
You're the sum of your 5 friends.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally. Exactly. I've been hanging out with my my 7-year-old daughter a little too much, I think. Yeah. Very nice to have the both of you. Yogi, by the way, Yogi, I believe, was on the inaugural community call, like the very first one, which goes back over 2 years now, actually. So if he's got some gray in his beard, that's probably, he's an old timer at this point. So he's nice. Anybody else new on the call so I can stop harassing Yogi? Got
yeah. Hello everyone. No, you can go ahead, Nawaz, please.
Okay. Hey folks, this is Nawaz, and this is my first meeting, and I joined Layer5 a month back, but I didn't attend any meeting, so this is my first meeting.
Beautiful. Nawaz, welcome. Who else?
Yeah. So hello everyone. I'm Caio. I'm also from Brazil. I'm part of HPE software engineer team, and this is my first community call, and got in touch 2 weeks ago with the Meshery team to see the Meshery CTL. So yeah, really looking forward to learn new stuff.
A maiden voyage today. Nice. By the way, just outside of the community being built on sarcasm, we're also very video friendly. So whether you brushed your hair today or not, like, flip on those cameras. It's nice to connect with you all. So, but yeah, very nice to have you. Good. There's a couple of other maybe new faces. Who else?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Uja Emmanuel from Nigeria. I'm a software developer and a technical writer. I got introduced to the community, say 2 weeks ago. I've not really made any contributions yet, but I'm really looking forward to working and growing in the community. Most especially in terms of writing, because I've seen that the Meshery code is not what I'm familiar with, so I think I'll just stick to the aspect of writing, more especially the documentation part. So, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome to the community. Any other newcomer we're missing on?
Yeah, hello. I'm Max Lambrecht from Argentina. I also work for HPE with Yogi and Juliano and Caio. Yeah, I joined yesterday's newcomers call. I'm very glad to be part of this community. I'm starting to learn about Meshery and going through the great documents, and looking forward to contributing to these projects. Thank you.
Awesome. Just Max, really quick, man. Is it Maximus? Or is it just Max? I just want to.
No, just Max.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just Chaz.
It's a very, very, very uncommon name for my country, for Argentina. I think I'm the only one in this country.
Yeah. It's all of like 3 letters long. I was having a difficult time figuring out how to.
Nice to meet you.
Lee, I think we do have Max C as well, who is on vacation. I believe you met him before. So heads up, he's also from Argentina.
Yeah, but he's Maximiliano.
Maximiliano, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so there actually is an important difference between, yeah, okay, got it. Awesome. I spy at least one more, and it's compulsory that we harass every individual. So,
hello, Lee. Sorry to disturb you. Like, I haven't introduced myself yet. Hello, guys. My name is Anchit Chandra. I'm from India. I'm currently a third-year student in information technology branch, and I've been working for a early age startup named MSOS Tech Private Limited as a SDE intern. Like, I always wanted to contribute in open source, and I just recently came to know about the Layer5, like this community, how they give people opportunity to contribute in the open source. So happy to have you all here. Thank you for.
We're happy to have you here. Okay, so if there's no other newcomer left, I think we should begin. There is one left. If you don't volunteer, I have to go find you.
microphone is open. Ihuma.
I'm from Nigeria. I'm a front-end developer, and also I'm into technical writing a little. I joined the newcomers meeting yesterday, and I actually joined this community call today, and I really hope to contribute to the community in terms of documentation and technical writing, and also help me improve my skills. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Cool. So we'll start with the meeting today. First,
I'm so sorry. I know this is annoying, maybe at this point, but did Kolsum, did you already say hi? I missed it.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Kulsum Zara, and I'm a computer science graduate. I've also been an outreach intern with the Tor project, and I'm interested to explore the cloud native community. And so I'm here and looking forward to learn from you all. Thank you.
okay, before Lee finds someone else, Akshit Patel, I'm not sure if you've introduced yourself before. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Akshit Patel. I am graduate student from India, and I'm currently learning Go and looking forward to contributing this amazing project.
Great. Okay, any other newcomers? Final call. Okay, I think we're done for today. Cool. So the first topic is by Unnati. Unnati, do you want to present this?
Yeah, sure. Can I present my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Just wait a moment. So is my screen visible?
It is.
Okay, cool. Hello, good evening to everyone. So I'm proudly announcing that we have collaborated with Openforce, where it is a community initiative by my friend Harbin Kaur. And here we will be leading for different open source projects, and we will be guiding students how to contribute to Layer5. And yeah, so the timeline will be from 3rd March to 28th March. And yeah, I can share the doc link with you. Just wait a moment. I'm not able to go over it. Just wait a moment. I have to pause this share.
Sure, take your time. This is great. So while Unati is bringing that up, I think in part what Unati is going to be asking for is participation from those in the community that might want to spend some time introducing others to the project and offering some mentorship. So as she shares this, just have that in the back of your mind. She'll seek you out.
So this is a link for the doc that we have prepared for Layer5 collaboration with Openforce. So we need the organizing team, and we would be dividing the areas of responsibility to every like volunteer who would be able to volunteer for this cause. And we will be looking for people who would be making certain issues. As we have already certain issues, we can work on it. Otherwise, we can make certain new issues for the beginners to contribute to Layer5. And we would be also needing people for promotions on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Obviously, Twitter we have. And yeah, so if anyone is interested for the same, they could write their names in the below in the document today, and we would be happy to have you on board for this.
So if you're interested, Unati is in the Slack. Unati she'll probably she posted a link to this in the Zoom. She'll probably post a link in Slack. She might end up posting it on the Discuss forum.
Yeah, I can just post it after the call, and I will make a thread of it.
Nice. Anyone immediately interested? Anyone want to signal right now?
So they can even tell me in the chat box. Also, it is a great cause since we are promoting the beginners to contribute to such open source organizations, and many organizations such as Apache, Eclipse Adoptium is coming for the collaboration as well. So it will be a great start for Layer5 to be in collaboration with a student community event. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Unnati. So next up, we have a Meshery intro and deep dive today. So Lee, would you like to take it on from here?
Yeah, sure. So by the way, there's 36 of us on the call today. I'd like to say that that's a record. It's not. So tell your friends, because we're close. Not quite there yet, though. Speaking of telling your friends or your colleagues, Mr. Porla, who's on the call, is instrumental in getting Max and Juliano and the rest of the crew here. And just with the influx of a number of newcomers today, it's a beautiful occasion, a perfect occasion to go through what the heck Meshery is. kind of what why the project is here, what the vision for it is, what its architecture is like, high level, feature areas. And the point of doing it is entirely so that people can ask questions. So if you don't interrupt with a question, I'll just assume you're not paying attention or you don't care. I guess I'll just be offended. So anyway, point is, 38. Okay, we're up. We're Meshmate Aditya, you'll have to keep score if that's. I think that's. You have to keep score on the official record. I don't recall. All right. So there's a ton to talk about. Like Meshery is about almost a 2-year-old project at this point. And actually, no, it is. So Meshery's been, lot to say. Meshery's been open from the very beginning. It looked totally different than it does today. It wasn't a CNCF project until a few months ago. It started out to be, well, it started out running on top of playwithk8s.com, playwithdocker.com. So we're teaching people about service meshes. People kept asking questions like, which one should I use? And what's the difference between them? What's the overhead involved? There's a lot of value here. How do you characterize the performance of these things? How do you know if you're running a service mesh well? Gosh, I'm scared to make a change. How do I know if the traffic, the configuration that I'm applying is doing what it's supposed to do? And all those types of questions, right? Understanding that there's a lot of power inside the network, and that we've got this newfangled software-defined networking layer called service meshes, and that there are many of them, and that they're here to stay, and many of them are here to stay. Some of them will die. That's unfortunate. And some of them, and new ones will be announced. I suspect one or more of you that's been paying attention to an upcoming announcement about a new service mesh will probably list off that service mesh in the Zoom chat. So we'll send you, you'll get today's prize, which is it the pot up to $500,000? That's what we're going to send whoever says it first. I think that's what it is. So super brief recap. What's a service mesh? Well, architecturally high level, a data plane and a control plane. Lots of proxies with something controlling them and configuring those proxies. Good. If you don't have a control plane, you ain't a service mesh. I was speaking with the founder of, well, a company that I'll let go unnamed, but he was pedantically stating that if you don't have observability, you ain't a service mesh. As a matter of fact, he was saying that in reference to the mesh that's about to be announced. Anyway, networking is difficult. Service meshes are confusing. A management plane can help piece together a lot of things, make it a lot easier. Meshery is aimed at any number of use cases. Can you do chaos management through a service mesh? Yeah, absolutely. You can introduce tons of chaos. You might want to manage that. Can you optimize your service mesh configuration? Yeah, Meshery can help you assess, or a management plane can help you assess that. Meshery can help you assess that. Is that a one-time assessment? No, it's a continual thing. Anytime that any aspect of your infrastructure changes, you deploy a new application, you reconfigure your mesh, you reconfigure your Kubernetes cluster, you deploy a new version of your app. How many retries should you have configured between each app? I don't know. Maybe some tooling would help with that. So it's a use case for Meshery. Lots of use cases for Meshery. To date, Meshery's been somewhat in a boring way, well, I think in a boring way, kind of focused on horizontal support, like doing things horizontally, like supporting, what are we at, 10 service meshes right now? We'll see if maybe next week we can get some of the contributors to demo the latest beta adapter. So maybe we'll be at 11, although it's time to deprecate 1. So we'll do a +1, -1. We'll stay probably at 10. Anyway, the project's been really focused on how to provide this functionality uniformly across service meshes. As such, the project and its vision are well aligned with a specification called Service Mesh Interface, which is which we'll describe another time. But Meshery, as it's being built out as a management plane, this is something of a logical architectural view of its componentry, and it is you don't have to think of Meshery as being this complex if you don't want to. This is just sort of an exploded view of some of the internals and some of the constructs inside of the project. If you're noticing, oh, hold on. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. If you're noticing a little yellow box with extension points, and maybe it's too small, those are pretty intentional, and they're sort of littered throughout the project. So someone didn't clean up their code. I actually, quite the opposite. There's very intentional consideration given for making Meshery pluggable. So a prominent example is something like an adapter. We were just saying there's 10 different adapters, one for each different type of service mesh. So you want to add another one, you can plug into that extension point. There's a gRPC interface, you plug in. And the same goes for a number of the other areas. We're going to see some extension points in action today. Some of them are just going to, you won't, actually all of them, the point of the plugin model is that you can't really tell that they're extensions. So Meshery, from a functional perspective, kind of the big feature categories, if you will, is like lifecycle management of the individual service meshes. There's much room for more sophistication there. And there's a lot of sophistication coming. Well, that's coming in the release that's about to be made for .6, but even more for .7, and how it is that you can, in a sophisticated way, manage the ongoing configuration of your service meshes. A lot of times you'll hear people refer to that type of configuration as a pattern-based approach. So we'll be clarifying what service mesh patterns are. So you should be able to do workload management. Why are you running the infrastructure? Why are you running the service mesh in the first place? We're all here for the application, for the workload. That is the king. And it should be treated as such. So there should be a lot of first-class considerations for your applications and how to control them in a fine-grained way with the mesh. So there's lots of areas. Meshery has some built-in best practices for your runtime environment. In this case, this particular feature only applies to Istio. Yes, that's right. So the point of the individual adapters and why the community is sustaining 10 of them is not to interface uniformly with each service mesh, and in some respects, neuter their individual differentiation. Rather, it's to support their individualized differences, their individualized functions, and let users at those. While at the same time, still providing a common substrate of other functionality like performance management or like conformance management. So SMI is a collection of 4 specifications that define how you can interact with any given mesh that implements these specs. SMI is a sibling project. Meshery is the conformance tool. So if you want to know if the service meshes, those 6 or 7 service meshes that have implemented SMI are running according to spec, Meshery is the tool to use to do that. There's a public facing dashboard of what that is, of their current status. Meshery also recognizes that WebAssembly is a thing, and there's a lot of power that can be exposed and controlled through filters. So there are some, just as in the current releases that are coming out now, there's kind of out of the box filters that ship with Meshery. Meshery then, that's kind of an example of an extension point. You can bring your own filters as well. Meshery ships with some, but you can bring your own as well. And the intention there, part of the vision, is to allow people to really configure those, not just to really configure those, manage the ongoing life cycle of the filters themselves, and get fine-grained about which services get what filters and when, and maybe to like provide a facility for telemetry to come back from those filters to do different things. There's just like, so long as you can avoid a lot of overhead and a lot of performance impact, there's just a lot to be explored with what people can do with those types of filters. And hence, that's why we focus on performance. We'll talk about performance in a minute, because the more that you do with your infrastructure, the more you would expect that it has overhead that's incurred. It's interesting because it's not just about measuring overhead and speeds and feeds. It's also about measuring value and your benefit. So we had a meeting on Wednesday with 5 engineers from Intel and 1 from Red Hat talking about, well, an upcoming performance measurement called Meshmap. So that's a whole topic unto its own, but the reason I mention it is because this unit of measure, a Meshmap, would indicate to you how efficiently your infrastructure is running, your service mesh, your cluster, but also incorporated into that unit of measure would be a consideration for the benefit, the value that you're gaining as well. So in a similar vein, by the way, do interrupt as we go, so in a similar vein, eBPF is a thing and has been for a while. And Meshery is positioned to perform similar management that it's doing for WebAssembly filters for eBPF programs as well. So that's a roadmap. Meshery we try to acknowledge in the community and in the project that there's any number of functionalities that service meshes offer, circuit breaking as an example, or retries or what have you. And people aren't quite sure if they're doing those things correctly. Is your circuit breaker too sensitive? Is it not sensitive enough? Does that sensitivity need to change over time based on runtime, telemetry runtime things that are happening? Everybody, like almost everyone has that type of a question. So what are the common patterns? What are the templates that we can use to make sure that we're operating in accordance with how others are doing it? Or as we take a given pattern and apply that to our infrastructure about how to run how to configure your environment, you might want to change that and modify that over time. And so you can persist those configurations. So we'll get into that. Actually, so there's a collection of patterns that are coming forth, some that are being written into a book that's an early release. So if you're an O'Reilly subscriber, you can go check it out. If you're not an O'Reilly subscriber, come contribute to the book. There's a lot of patterns to be published. There's in concept a couple of books on service mesh patterns. There's a few that have been published already or tentatively published. I think Meshmate Aditya will talk about this in a little bit. It's of a nominal note that in part how patterns function and kind of what they're underpinned by is the open application model. If you want to learn more about that, go to ohm.dev. Cool. So Meshery is our, in terms of the ecosystem in the community here, we kind of talked about a few different projects. We keep talking about kind of Meshery at the core. One of the ones we haven't spoken of yet is Nighthawk. So Nighthawk is, well, geez, this is convenient. Nighthawk is, one of 3 load balancers that Meshery, not load balancers, load generators that Meshery currently supports. So, if you want to characterize the performance of your application deployment, of your service mesh deployment, as a matter of fact, whether your applications, your services are running on a mesh or off of a mesh, this performance management functionality, the ability to generate load, analyze that load, allow you to compare the performance differences between different configurations. That type of functionality works whether you're testing services off Kubernetes, on a service mesh, or off a service mesh. And that's in part one of our other sibling projects within the CNCF is a project called Service Mesh Performance. And so smpspec.io is where you can learn more about that particular project. Cool. So
Lee, you got a question in the chat.
Yeah. Nice. So the question is, so patterns are basically ways of how we combine different service meshes. Okay, all right. So are patterns basically ways of how we combine different service meshes, or is this more about the workflow and specific to one service mesh? Yeah, that makes sense. Well, here's the unfortunate, confusing answer: is it's both, which is to say, that there is ultimately a desire for, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully not steal any thunder necessarily, but there've been a few different community members, Aditya Chatterjee in specific, that have been working on, hold on one second. Cool. It's a small red line. Which is to say that as some of these patterns are put together, that that this catalog isn't ready for release yet, but there are a number of patterns that are emerging. So one of the ones I was giving an example of is like a circuit breaker. The hope here is that ultimately the way that these are put together is that some patterns will be compatible with only a single mesh, while and that makes a lot of sense to the extent that not all meshes are capable of the same things, while other patterns you might find are ubiquitously applicable across different service mesh types. And so, yeah.
Can I add something?
Yep. Sure.
Thanks. So maybe Lee can correct me if something's wrong with what I'm about to say, but I like to see patterns like a way to declaratively define well, basically a way of architecting a specific workload. And the reason, because sometimes it could be mesh agnostic and sometimes it's not. It's basically because it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. It could be something at the different layers of the stack, right? So I think that kind of clarifies that. Well, yeah, it's like an abstraction around, like above the different mesh implementations, right?
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, those are.
So for example, I don't think right out of the box like a scenario where you would use more than one mesh, but of course, if it's a requirement, or if there's different features that one mesh performs well and another mesh, then of course it could be written or implemented, right?
Yeah, to kind of reinforce what Mario was saying is that the YAML here is an example, like, so we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we'll have to stop this after the .6 release. And that is that we've conflated two things within the project, kind of the difference between a pattern, like a template for like, hey, here's how you do retries well. And here's how you might configure it either on a specific mesh or across different service meshes. And that you could go to kind of a catalog of patterns and say, yeah, the circuit breaking pattern. Yeah, let's apply that here because that's going to help us. And so you would go ahead and sort of choose from the catalog, apply that pattern. You might choose to modify the pattern a little bit to suit your needs. That's the gist of how we will eventually be using the term patterns. There's a different term that we should bring forth, I think, like I'm expressing this on behalf of some of the other maintainers, but that like in this UI, this would end up being called like designs, or it would be called just lifecycle management of the mesh. So this would be your service mesh configurator. The same, so as you go through and kind of design how you want a specific service mesh deployment to run, that gets expressed in a YAML format that is the same format that we express patterns within. So if there's a best practice kind of approach to how you do circuit breaking, that's a pattern, that pattern is expressed in YAML, that same YAML format is this same format. So you can think of, so I think the thing that we want to try to begin to like convey better, or
like grasp.
So, yeah, and I'm saying this like toward myself as well, is that like patterns are you can use Meshery to go configure your service mesh. If you've identified, then you can take certain designs that have been done. If those are kind of tried and true, that those can be qualified or sanctified as a pattern, sort of in the official way that like, hey, these are generally reusable. So if you think about Docker Hub and the fact that it has hundreds of thousands of container images, some of those are official, some of those are verified publisher, and so some of those are well supported and highly used. Others of those are published by Joe Schmo, and so I think we consider that service mesh catalog is essentially becomes the same thing, that there are some of those designs that are imbued with best practices. We would refer to those as patterns, and that as a community or as a project, we would stand behind and say, this is the way, that generally agreed upon way that you should probably go and run this type of behavior within your mesh. And then there may be any number of other individuals that come along and create a design. Maybe it's a fantastic pattern. They too can take, it's the same descriptor, it's the same format. So they too could take and publish that. And so as a community, we've yet to have the discussions and kind of arrive at like, well, what would be an official pattern and well supported and incorporated into the integration tests and that kind of a thing, versus how do we delineate between any other design that someone else might create. And so. Good, so we've got about 15 minutes or so. So so each of these slides that we were going over, these are sort of introductory toward the high level features and functions, kind of how Meshery works. There's another slide deck on Meshery architecture. For anyone who's on the call or not on the call, so long as you fill in your community member form, you'll find that you've got access to the community drive, in which you'll find these slides and a lot of other assets, design docs and things. So it probably serves us well to say that the way that Meshery as a piece of software is released today is as a container, as a set of containers. The core components in the current release are Meshery as a server, and bundled in there is the Meshery UI as well. The load generators that we've spoken of, they're kind of bundled in there as well. There's individual containers, one for each Meshery adapter. To the extent that you connect Meshery to Kubernetes, you'll find that there's an operator that's deployed. The operator has a couple of custom controllers, the most notable of which is a controller called MeshSync. And so running inside of Kubernetes, whether Meshery is running in Kubernetes or whether you've deployed Meshery on a Docker host, either of those two deployment models are supported. When you do connect, or if you do connect Meshery to Kubernetes, it will deploy an operator so that Meshery can stay in sync with in real time. So both it can stay in sync with real-time configuration changes that are happening within Kubernetes and within your service mesh, also so that it can perform discovery of any existing service meshes and any existing workloads that you might have deployed. So that's kind of the core architecture. When you go to deploy Meshery for the first time and you bring up the UI, it'll ask you to sign in to either the local provider or a remote provider. These providers, these are really, these providers are primarily about identity. If you choose the local provider, you are having a single user mode experience, or sort of a no user mode experience. Perfect. If you choose to log into a provider, different providers might offer, different providers can give you, might offer up plugins. Different providers will, have different, geez, how do I say this? Like have different characteristics. Like some of them might help persist performance tests that you've run, so you can pull up the history of those tests. Some of them might be for research purposes. Some of them one of them might be for storing conformance tests. Like, so this is an area of extensibility. Anyone can go write a provider. The other aspect of the architecture is about Meshery's APIs and the clients of those APIs, so that it's of significant note that there's a CLI for Meshery. And Piyush, are you on the call? I thought I saw your name there too.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so as everyone is not like a UI person, some people wants to interact with terminal. We have a CLI of our own, that's Meshery CTL. I'll just present my screen, showcase some of the features. Okay, so Meshery CTL is our CLI, and we have a lot of features here. Like app, we can manage our Meshery applications. We can manage the service meshes from the terminal. We can manage the patterns, the performance test, the performance profiles, performance results, and also the Meshery itself. So whatever the features that are like the things that are possible with the UI, we are trying to serve that with the CLI also. Should I demo something? I'm not sure.
There's probably something worth noting that actually we don't have captured in the slides. It's the notion that you want to talk about GitHub Actions and Meshery CTL.
I think I won't be able to explain that very well.
So to Piyush's point
what
about
perspective, sorry, Lee, what perspective is relevant on those two subjects?
Just to explain the fact that we have actions and what their purpose is, how they use Meshery.
Like for a contributor to reuse them for different use cases. Sounds good.
Yeah, so to Piyush's point, not every use case involves the mouse. And so the Meshery CLI is not only, it's designed for humans primarily. Piyush can tell you all about the pain involved in designing for humans, but it's also understood that it's pretty common for people to kind of treat a CLI in a programmatic way as well, as an unofficial API. Anyway, because of some of those use cases, people want to run performance tests that Meshery will do within their pipeline. People want to run maybe conformance tests from within their pipeline. People might want to have Meshery apply a pattern or deploy a service mesh, deploy their application, apply a pattern, run a performance test, like do all that kind of a thing within their build system, within their pipeline. And so to the extent that projects are using GitHub as their workflow, as their pipeline, as their build engine, this community has published, I think in total about 6 GitHub actions, but like 3 of which are probably pretty well user facing. So there's one for performance management, or one for conformance tests for SMI. And Hirsch, if he's on the call, I think he's working on one around patterns. So to apply a pattern.
Hey, hi.
There he is. And so,
do you want me to take over and show something to?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be nice. If you're.
Yeah, just let me pull up the actions. Sure.
Yeah, well, we completely put you on the spot, Hirsch. That's great.
You can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah. So
here is, how you can apply mesh pattern with Meshery. So this is, most of it is done. Actually, there's a PR here as well. There's one small aspect where some work is left, but this is something that, I can take you through this. So if you see what and another thing that you could possibly do is, we have these actions for someone to, they just want to, let's say that they've done something new and they just want to test out some patterns and stuff, and they it's not a very massive pattern. So what they could do is they could just simply spin up a GitHub action to see whether they're applying something that's working or not. And specifically for Meshery CTL, so if you're doing some changes to this particular, let's say if you're making some changes with regards to the command line, right, and you want to see whether this is working or this is not working, so this is a particularly good action that you could go ahead and spin up and see whether you've not made a mess there, and see, okay, this is something that serves as a sort of a visual test as well. So this is something that you could do. It's pretty, this one is pretty straightforward. There is another one in the chat which has been shared by Navendu, I guess. Yeah, that is the service mesh performance action. So if you just want to go ahead and check the performance of your, you could fork from that repository. You could go ahead and, run that particular action on your service mesh, and then you'll get some results. So currently also trying to get that working on our own machines. So that is another aspect on which we're working right now. That more or less should be it from my side.
Nice. We're closing in on the last 5-6 minutes. There's a number of things that haven't been discussed about Meshery's functionality, also about kind of where it's headed. Before we try to squeeze that into 5 minutes, are there questions that we haven't hit just yet?
I don't know if we can delve on the Meshmap, Lee.
Yeah, that sounds good. Matter of fact, does anyone else? I'll bring that up now. Does anyone else on the call have Meshmap up? I want to show it. I'm going to pull mine up. See if you can beat me to it. What's that, Nitish? You're going to go. Okay, go ahead. Oh, maybe I should start Docker. Start my Kubernetes cluster. Oh, let me. Share here. So my cluster, I don't think you can see it, but my Kubernetes cluster is just coming up here. Does anybody else have Meshmap running? Anybody else want to show it? Come on, Docker. So, there's some things we didn't talk. Yeah, we didn't kind of go over, so like some of the performance management that goes on. Okay, I think Docker is coming up. Oh, Docker is up. Kubernetes isn't just yet. Aditya, Nitish, who else? Deborah, Abi, you guys have Meshmap running? Yeah, I haven't run any adapter yet, but let me see. I am so close. Machine still.
Yep, I have it up. If you have not.
Okay. Yeah, my machine's choking. I don't know why. So yeah, one of the features of Meshery we're talking about is extensibility, the ability to, for remote providers to create plugins. One of the plugins that's being worked on in the community is referred to as Meshmap. And so Meshmap is about to go into beta. And so I'm sure someone will drop a link to where to go sign up for beta. To introduce it briefly, Meshmap really has two modes. There is a visualizer mode in which, as a user, you can go through and understand your currently running infrastructure. So I think what did I have, Istio and Linkerd both deployed in this environment. But it lets you analyze your currently running infrastructure, go through, get details you want to look at, invoke performance tests against your services that are running. If you were to identify a pod, it would even let you establish like an interactive terminal with the containers in that pod. It'll let you establish a log stream of logs that come from that pod or the containers in that pod, and you can go ahead and interact with it.
A quick question there. That identity there, is that a workload identity or is that a user identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is, in this case, it's kind of, in this case, it's Linkerd's like Linkerd has a control plane component called identity, and it's Linkerd's identity component of the Linkerd control plane. Yeah.
Thanks.
And so there is the ability to connect to Prometheus and to Grafana, to like pull in Grafana boards that you might want to, that have definitions of metrics that you want to look at and use. And so you're able to look at those on a per node basis. So there's kind of your stereotypical set of ways that you want to view your infrastructure and understand what's going on in your runtime environment. Try this real quick. So you can search through and identify, pick out the ones you want to work with. There's another mode inside of Meshery, inside of Meshmap, referred to as a designer mode. And so in designer mode, what you'll end up working with is a visual way of configuring your, both your cluster and your service meshes and the applications that are running on them. There are, let me bring up a couple of adapters to kind of show the difference here.
Hey, Lee?
Yeah.
Is this intended to function somewhat kind of like CLI?
Yeah, the visualizer mode is probably, CLI is most similar.
Very cool.
Yeah, except CLI, so great. So CLI is, I don't spend a lot of time with it, but it, is Istio only and does like a fantastic job of hooking up with Prometheus and speaking to Istio specifically and helping you understand what's happening in your environment. And that's kind of, yeah, it's very similar to the visualizer mode, except for Meshery, it's really any service mesh. When you go into the designer mode, the point, let me refresh, because I connected, or I should have connected a couple of adapters now. That part of the designer mode then is to, yeah, let you configure your environment. I'm a little hesitant. Okay, yeah, good. So is to go through and visually configure how it is that you want your meshes configured, how it is that you would like for your applications to run on those meshes, to then be able to take things like the patterns that we were kind of discussing before and load those in as well, to be able to persist your designs, and then ultimately, like, deploy your designs, to be able to take the filters that we were talking about, apply them to your environment. Let's do this. And really the point too is that, like, not only is this, would Meshmap and Meshery, like whatever Meshery is supporting, Meshery is supporting this many service meshes, then as a plugin, Meshmap supports them as well as each of the individual versions of that specific mesh. And so while this, yeah, and so there needs to be additional level of sophistication to allow people to intermix or to maybe upgrade from one version of a given mesh to the next. That's kind of part of the vision and sort of use cases. I wanted to show something else a little bit, it's a little bit different, is that you can, like, Nitish, you'll have to correct me. I don't recall kind of where this is at, but if, like, for different style configurations that you're going to want to do, there's different, there's different meaning involved. So if you want to apply like an envoy filter, you might take that component and instead of being able to place it onto the canvas directly, it's not gonna, it won't let you. It wants you to apply that to a given service that's there, a given component that's already there. And then you can configure that, the binary for the filter that you want to run and any, text-based configuration you want to apply. There's the concept that you might want to apply, multiple filters in a chain for a specific service. And so you might drop over a different one and configure what that filter is. And then you'd have kind of your inventory of envoy filters here. So we really, as it, this is quite early, but a similar concept is the thought process for eBPF programs as well. So let's see.
This is the first time seeing it demoed like this and being able to visualize your mesh setup is very, very cool. Good work to everyone who's been working on this. This is awesome.
Still in beta, right?
Yeah.
This view.
Cool. So it's in beta and yeah, it needs some more improvements here, and we will be ready to So if I'm not wrong, so the beta program will be released very soonly, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, that's a great point. We should call that out now. That it's like people should, we haven't told, like collectively, we, and Mario is like one of the guys that's on the call consistently helping advance Meshmap. There's a sign up form for the beta. It's layer5io/Meshmap. And so, so jump in, get on the waiting list now, but fill in the form and you'll be on the list to get early access to go break something. There's some additional functionality I didn't really demo in there. There's a ton more work to be done within there, but yeah, but that's kind of, but you're sort of understanding the gist of what's going on. Like, I think in the future, it would be ideal if there's a bit of less maybe segregation between the two modes. We kind of switched from the visualizer where you're seeing your currently running infrastructure, and then the designer where you would apply patterns and create your own designs. That we want to make that a little more integrated, such that like while it's not necessarily a best practice for people to, we don't necessarily want to encourage people to, what's the word I'm looking for? To make ad hoc changes to their production infrastructure. Sometimes that's necessary. You need to go debug things, and great. Hopefully Meshmap helps in that way. But also we want to like you're able to connect up to GitHub and read in patterns, and not yet, but ultimately push pattern. Like there needs to be a GitOps centric flow to this, kind of an approval process by which people can run these out. I don't know. I was to be meeting with Docker's CTO right now. We just had a conflict. I want to make sure we were here for the new folks that are taking a look. But we want to talk to them about an integration of Meshery and Docker Desktop. Docker Desktop today, fantastic way to get a local Kubernetes cluster, so that if you're a developer or an engineer that needs to have a local system, it's a checkbox thing. So we want to explore Meshery providing a checkbox for service meshes in Docker Desktop.
Lee, one with respect to time, I know you have to run, but $1 billion idea here is that recently federal government's zero trust mandate has guided the shift from RBAC to ABAC by the end of 2024. So once we have the service identity in there, we could actually, using this as editor for ABAC, that would be amazing, because that's what many struggle with. We at HP, we are struggling with that on how do we actually, because with RBACs, yes, you do have the user involved, but for the ABACs, we do need this service identity. Once we have the service identity, how do we actually route traffic? How do we actually issue the, either it could be leveraging OPA or leveraging something like Kyberno. How do you actually incorporate that attribute-based access control and traffic routing? So this would give us that level of customization within microservices and service-to-service communication. So
it's a great suggestion. Yeah, and to be able to do it visually and like verify that, like even to be able to test something, like to put an assertion like if the user inside of this jot, inside this token is equals Yogi Porla, is the traffic allowed? Is it redirected over to the golden cluster, or is it, but to be able to see that, or rather it's not just Yogi Porla, but in part to your point, Yogi, is like, but also does that user, that token have these other attributes? And to be able to have a tool that lets you both like configure that with confidence and verify it and test it with confidence, and maybe do it either whether you're doing it locally or against a remote cluster. Oh yeah, you said a mouthful, I think. So.
When the GitOps,
Juliana, sorry, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that the GitOps approach that Lee mentioned, it's also like super valuable, because it's not, besides having that ability to design visually, if we're able to back it up and have this GitOps process, it's like awesome, like to have this Git integration and have some process that automatically it's able to see the context about different branches and make sure the infrastructure is basically in accordance with that desired state. That's awesome.
Just talking with a distinguished engineer at Cisco who was talking about a concept that I've had for a couple of years to like take that a little bit further. So great from a designer perspective, you want to make a change, Lee's making the change. So obviously that needs to be reviewed critically and then maybe approved. And if it is and it's built and then deployed in the runtime, it'd be really nice to see when that goes to crap, that you could do a Git blame and see that it was, Lee that made that change, and then make sure he's on the call to go fix his problem and like,
roll it back or
yeah.
roll forward.
And then take away his Git credentials.
So Spire folks that are on the call, we have a task, I guess. Service identity and workload identity.
We should absolutely like double click on that. We should so we're kind of out of time today, but we should get a design spec going. We should get some thoughts on paper and talk about some of the use cases and get Meshery integrated with Spire, with Spiffy much more deeply. Like I think Yogi, you were presenting sort of just the tip of the iceberg on all of the things to do around identity, ABAC.
Yogi, are you involved in the SMI community at all?
Not really, but maybe passively.
Okay. Because recently there's been a discussion about the way that traffic targets are implemented and discussing some very similar things to what you're talking about with access control and service identity.
So, Jared, I don't know if you're familiar with Frederick Cards. So we were working with them. So Frederick he's the design head at Anthem, and he's also part of the CNCF community. He heads, he heads one of the tag groups within the CNCF community. So one of the ideas was okay. Previously, we were in a passive mode mainly because there was no federal mandate. There was no timeline for that, but now there is a timeline, which is 2024 is the hard deadline. We have to be actively present in there. So I think identity as a spec within SMI that could work wonders. So if you don't mind, could you we could sync up offline, and if you can share some details on what you have in mind, and what I could also do the same thing, what we had in mind before, and maybe we could push that forward.
Okay. Yeah, if you can, yeah, we can sync up offline so we don't take up more people's time here. But yeah, cool.
Any last comments or questions? Nice. Hey, thanks all for hanging out a little bit extra. Wonderful to have you. We'll continue the discussion in Discuss or in Slack, and see you if you're around for either Monday's websites call or the Wednesday Meshery dev call, or next Friday for round 2 of this. So nice to see you all. Catch you later. Have a great weekend.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.